Hey, glad you're here. Even gladder that you're here to talk about dashes. Here's the thing, dashes are, without question, the best punctuation mark there is. That may not be a popular opinion, but it is the only correct one. You expect me to believe that the stuffy old semicolon is more interesting? No, dashes are the funnest, so let's get to it. First things first, we should be clear about what we're talking about when we're talking about dashes, because they could be confused with much less interesting punctuation marks. Interestingly, dash-like punctuation gets more interesting the longer it is. So at the bottom of the barrel we have hyphens. Hyphens are not dashes. Hyphens are tiny. They're usually a sign that we don't really know what in the world we're doing, and they may even be worse than question marks, but that is debatable. Short story short, they're short. They're weak, and they're not what we're talking about. Moving up in terms of interest and length, we get the N dash, so named because it's meant to be the same size as the letter N, see? The N dash gets to outrank the hyphen because it is at least a dash, but it's not a very interesting one. Its most common usage is to separate digits in a range of numbers, like this. Most people use hyphens here, but remember, hyphens are worthless. Sure, nobody will probably notice or care if you use an N dash to separate numbers like this, but you'll know, and you'll feel like the spiciest little elitist in town. If anyone ever did notice, you'd know you could trust them with the fine china if they ever came over. So N dashes aren't really all that useful, but they're rare and maybe a little pretentious, and that makes them kinda special. But the M dash is the famous dash, the main dash, the original dash. And this is where the fun begins. Because we just talked about N dashes, you might be thinking that the M dash gets its name for being the same length as the letter M. And, well, you'd be right. We could go around saying M dash all the time, but as you know by now, the M dash is the only one that really matters, so we just call it a dash. And I guess I should say that M dashes and N dashes work a little differently in different parts of the English-speaking world, but as you can tell, my English is either delightfully or irredeemably American, so I'll be talking about American dashery today. I'm sorry, or you're welcome, depending on where you are. But enough stalling, let's talk about dashes, the real dashes. You can use a dash anywhere you would use a comma, so if you have a good handle on structural commas, hint hint, you'll know common spots where you can use dashes. For example, consider the difference in these two sentences. See how the dash zooms across the sentence, filling it with a thrilling kinetic energy? You could think of dashes as livelier, more emphatic commas. A comma will do the grammatical job of gluing things together, but a dash might work a little more like glitter glue. Dashes have personality. Or imagine a sentence with some kind of modifier tucked into it with a pair of commas. Here, the commas do nothing interesting. The parentheses mute the modifier, and the dashes put neon lights around it. They emphasize whatever they touch, imbuing it with their unique power of pure joy. But dashes don't just work in the place of commas. They can also go in the place of some colons, like preceding a list. In fact, you can use a dash to stand in the place of the word namely with great success. You could also use a dash where you mean that is, or in other words. I'm going to explain ethos, the measure of a person's character. You could use a dash to interrupt or pivot mid-thought. Oh yeah, I did hear Donna was back. Actually, I've been meaning to ask her about the asparagus. But remember those colon-like dashes that lead into lists? They have a trick up their sleeve that no other punctuation mark can match. Magenta, aquamarine, and lavender. These are three colors I will never name. These special sentences are called periodic sentences, and they work by providing a reader with information that isn't contextualized by the rest of the sentence until the very end. They can build a sense of suspense or even drama, and that dash makes it happen. Just see if a stodgy old colon can pull off a trick like that. Spoiler alert, it can't. So hopefully you can see how versatile and dynamic the dash is. There's really nothing like it. It can emphasize something, enliven it, give you a chance to rephrase something, or even pivot to a new topic or purpose. It can even build up suspense, like in a periodic sentence. But as with all good things, there are some who worry about overusing dashes. Because the dash is so full of energy and life, some so-called authorities warn that using too many of them in your writing can make you look flighty, erratic, or unhinged. These are the types of authorities who mope around dusty parlors with their commas and colons, wondering why none of their friends call anymore. But maybe they're right, at least a little. Maybe you don't always want your writing to vibrate with the dazzling neon of too many dashes. But don't let that reputation scare you away. Dashes are criminally underutilized and so very useful. Just like with salt, you could overdo it with dashes, but just a dash will never hurt anyone. And I suppose that's where we'll leave it for today. I'm sure we all have somewhere important to dash off to. Besides, I'm hoping we'll see each other again soon.